Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Sandra Ray, and so delighted to have you here this week. And thank you once again for listening. It's always a pleasure to have you join me on these podcasts. And I just want to remind you, if you do listen each week, to subscribe on iTunes, to subscribe on YouTube if you watch the videos, so that you get immediate updates when the episodes go live. So this week we are talking about something that is a topic that came up for me during the week, and it's something that I think we all need to practice it, but it can be difficult to practice because we forget to, because I find that sometimes I will be so aware of a spiritual practice or a technique or a tool or something that I'll need to use. But when I'm in the midst of fear, when I'm in the midst of anger or sadness or anxiety, it's like all the teachings just go out the window and you get caught up in the fear or whatever it is. And I do that as well. And I'm getting better at not getting caught up in it. But something happened recently where I did allow myself to get caught up, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But it's like, if we have all the tools in the world, if we don't use them, then they're no use. If we only turn to them when we're feeling peaceful or happy, that's great. Obviously, we need to do it during those times to practice and to get used to doing it. But it's really, really important when you're out of alignment, when you're feeling fear or anxiety or frustration or whatever it is that's coming up, that you have the tools to turn to. But not only that, that you use them, that you actually use the tools and the practices and the techniques that you've learned so that you can apply them in your life, which makes all the difference. So we're talking about tiny tweaks that can change everything. And I want to explain that to you through something I noticed recently when I was doing yoga. And I love when I'm in a position or a pose in yoga, when I get into like an alignment that's locked in. So to explain that, I love doing Trikonasana. It's one of those poses that I just love how it makes me feel. You know, those stretches that are really good stretches. There's some stretches where it's like, get me out of this. I don't want to be in this stretch. And there's some stretches like, yeah, that feels really good. And Trikonasana is one of those. You don't need to know what it is if you don't do yoga. It's not important. But when I get into the pose, I notice that I spend at least a few minutes refining it and aligning it. So there's these like tiny little tweaks I do. I might put my shoulder back. I might tuck my hips in. I might tense a muscle where it's maybe been not tensed and needs to be tensed a little bit. Or there might be muscles that I relax. I might relax my neck, because sometimes I tense my neck when I know I need to relax it. So I'll spend a few minutes just going through my body, making these tiny little tweaks. And then when that's all done, I'm like, yeah, this feels really, really good. This is the alignment that I was looking for. And it's just been those sequence of tiny little tweaks that's led me to it. It's not like when I started out, I was in the pose, but I got into it. I got more into it and more into alignment by doing those tiny little tweaks. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's the same thing with your life. It's the same thing when you are going through things. If you are feeling good, you can make tiny little tweaks to feel even better. If you are feeling gratitude, you can make tiny tweaks to that gratitude to feel even more gratitude. And having trouble with that word, similarly, with when you're feeling not good, you can make tiny tweaks to reach towards something better. You can bring your emotions and your life into alignment through tiny little tweaks. It doesn't have to be something life-changing, some great overhaul of your life. You don't have to completely change everything that you're doing. You can start off with these small tweaks, and they're so easy, and it's Just, it makes so much difference. So a practice that I love is one that Abraham Hicks proposes. It's a process that they allow you to do so that you can make these tiny tweaks, and it's reaching towards better feeling thoughts. So exactly as I was saying, if you are feeling good, it's like, okay, I'm feeling good. What am I feeling good about? How can I feel better about this? How can I enjoy this more? So reaching towards better feeling thoughts. And equally, if you are feeling not so good, it's like, okay, well, I'm not feeling good about this. How can I feel better? What's the better feeling thought that I can reach towards? And it's that simple. So an example of this, the other day, I started to feel anxious about something. And it was something really small and insignificant. And the anxiety didn't really seem justified. Not that anxiety is ever justified, because it doesn't do anything for us. But you know, the way some things are big and, you know, scary, and you're like, oh, this anxiety is totally justified. But this was something really small, and we fool ourselves into thinking that. But this anxiety, it was something really small, and something that probably crept up on me a bit unexpectedly. Oh my goodness. So it was like it came out of the blue a little bit, which probably threw me a bit because I was a bit off guard. I wasn't expecting it. So as I was feeling this anxiety, I was like, okay, well, let's just reach towards a better feeling thought. So I was thinking about it, I was like, well, what feels better than this? And I was thinking, okay, well, I'm feeling anxious. Something that feels better is letting go, just letting go a little bit. I knew I wouldn't have one jump to let go entirely, but just letting go a little bit. And that did feel better. So I sat with that for a while. I was like, okay, well, what's next? What feels a little bit better than letting go? And allowing came up. So allowing it to be as it was, not trying to get rid of it, not trying to let go anymore, but just allowing it, just feeling it, just being in that space of feeling. And as I was allowing it, it started to dissipate. And I thought, okay, so I'm feeling a bit better. How can I reach towards the next best feeling thought? And as I was allowing, it was just like, just loving myself, just honoring my emotions, loving myself, loving every emotion, accepting every emotion, no matter what, not having to be positive all the time, not having to be in a space of not feeling, because when you're positive all the time, you're not really feeling, you're not feeling your full range of emotions. So just that self-love towards myself. And I just kept reaching towards the next best feeling thought. And then I was feeling so much better. But what happens is you have to then maintain that state. So you have to make sure that you don't go back to square one where you start thinking about the problem again, or the first thing that got you anxious, because it is something that you have to maintain. So be aware of that. But it's just those tiny little increments. It's like, okay, what's the next best feeling thought? Okay, I got that. I can reach towards that. That's attainable, because it's not a jump from being anxious to being on top of the world and in bliss and joy, because that was too big a jump. And Abraham Hicks teaches this, like, make that small little step towards a better feeling thought. And that better feeling thought for you, you might be in the midst of sadness. And rather than being in total sorrow, that better feeling thought might be just a little less sad. And after that, the better feeling thought might be depression, or it might be something that seems negative, but you're actually jumping each time to something that's slightly easier or feels slightly better. And it might be different for you. Maybe you jump from sadness into acceptance. Maybe you can make that leap, but it might be different. It depends on the circumstance. So, and the funny thing was, when I was going through this anxious feeling, later that day, I turned around to my husband. I was like, it just kind of came up, and it kind of just threw me a little bit, and it came out of nowhere. And he said to me something, and it's something that I know it's something that I so know. He said, well, can you not change that feeling of anxiousness or anxiety into excitement? Like, it was just like, I thought, yes, I totally can do that. And that's a leap that I can make, because it seems like it's not a leap you can make, because it seems like a big leap. But it's funny, the reason for the anxiety was that I was focusing on the worst case scenario. And when I thought, okay, how can I change this into excitement? I let myself feel excitement for a moment, and the thoughts of the best case scenario came up, and I was like, yes, that is what I want to get excited about. And that's what I'm missing, because I'm not focusing on the best case scenario. So sometimes you can transmute fear directly into excitement. There's other emotions that you can transmute as well. But even if you just reach towards that better feeling thought, if you just reach towards it in little increments, that is by far the easiest method. You just keep taking those little steps towards that better feeling thought, and talk yourself through it. Like, ask yourself those questions. Ask yourself, well, acknowledge first of all where you're at. Acknowledge, yes, I'm feeling angry. Yes, I'm feeling judgmental. Yes, I'm feeling fearful. And then ask yourself, okay, well, what feels better than this? What could I reach towards that feels a bit better? And talk yourself through it. Acknowledge, okay, well, I'm feeling fearful. What feels better is accepting the fear, and acknowledge that, and just sit with that for a moment. And then after a while, you'll have kind of reached that state of acceptance, and you'll say, okay, well, where can I go from here? Well, I can accept that fear is there, but I can also accept that fear isn't real, and sit with that for a moment. And for you, might be something different. It depends totally on the circumstances, but talk yourself through it. It's like you become your own counselor, your own therapist, your own guide. You talk yourself through these little steps, reaching each time towards a better feeling thought. And I guarantee you it works. But start off with the thoughts that feel good. When you're in states of gratitude, when you're in states of happiness, when you are in states of feeling good, reach towards the better feeling thought. How can I feel even better? And acknowledge, okay, I'm feeling happy right now. How can I feel even better? And you'd be surprised at what comes up. But I find if you do it when you're relaxed, if you do it when you're feeling good, the process becomes natural, and it becomes second nature if you keep doing it. And then when you're feeling not so good, that second nature of going to that process will already be in place. You'll have already set it up. It'll already be a natural thing for you to reach towards a better feeling thought, because you know what to do. You'll know to turn towards it. So that's the key, really. When we have these spiritual practices, it's like this toolkit that we have. And if you don't use them, when it comes to the pain and all the painful stuff in your life, you're not going to know what to do, because you haven't practiced. But if you practice while you're feeling good, then when it comes to when you're not so good, that's when you'll know what to do. And it takes ongoing work, and it's, it really is a marathon. It's not like, well, maybe you will master this overnight. Maybe your life will be completely changed and turn around. I don't know, and it is completely possible. But for me, it's like, I'll master one small part, or I think I'll have mastered a certain emotion, and I'll think, yeah, I can keep reaching towards better feeling thoughts when it comes to anger. But then another emotion, say patience, is something that I struggle with, particularly when it comes to my kids, and just being that compassionate presence for them, that patient, compassionate mother. That's something I struggle with at times. So that's something that I'm still working on. But there's other things where it's like, it's easy. It's like, okay, I can see myself turning towards anger, or I can see myself turning towards frustration. Okay, I know what to do. But other things will throw you off guard, and that's okay. It is a process. It is something that you continually need to do. I don't know what is up with my speech today, but keep doing it. Keep practicing. Keep trying. Keep accepting yourself, and enjoy the process. Most of all, enjoy it, have fun with it, and let me know how you get on. Again, thank you so much for being here, and I hope this episode has helped you. If it has, please let me know in the comments on my page. Please send me a direct message on Instagram and let me know your feedback. I would love to hear from you. We'll talk to you next week. Bye bye.